All right, gonna talk about Real World Homecoming New Orleans, which is essentially the third season. Um, and even just kind of like my impressions of Homecoming season one versus season two, which I've already sort of done an episode about that. Hashtag randomly with Ronnie Jr. You can see all the episodes or randomly with Ronnie Jr. But um, let's talk about this. New Orleans. And even Homecoming in general. I think it's well done. If I were to say what I thought season 1, New York, or season 2, the Venice Beach House, while I've been I mean, the amount of hours I've consumed watching Tammy Roman on Basketball Wives and other stuff she does, yes, 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 yes. But as a show in its entirety, definitely Real World Homecoming, New York, to me felt like a more connected show. I know that one could argue that it was because it was a you know March of 2020, things changed, and the world was upside down. But I don't think it was that. I think what I didn't see a lot in LA was like these through storylines, and I remember talking to somebody recently, and they were like, when somebody will say something like, "Oh, Sex in the City, the city's the fifth character, in this case, the fourth character," and it's like, "Oh, that's such a cliche take," and I'm like, I don't think it is, though. I don't think it is, and that's coming from somebody who grew up in Southern California, LA. mm, you know, um, Good. I think you got to have mad money for it to really work. So I'm trying, hit the Patreon if you want. No, but the bigger thing is New York to me was always the center of the universe. And the 7-ish years that I did live there, and probably the next 7 that I live there, lucky number 7, um New York always gave a little bit more. So when I think of Homecoming, I think of the first season. Um, the city was part of the show. The stories were even based on how you live a New York City life, which brings me to New Orleans, which actually brings me to like, why did they choose this? How did they choose this? Was this the right choice? I do think if we were going to go in line, there's plenty of spaces to find a way, especially since it was so prolific. Um, San Francisco's first season, with Pedro and just all that had went on and the impact that it had. And it's interesting. My opinions are only my opinions, and my opinions are based on I think the age of who you are also plays such an impact why this works. You'll talk to other people who watch The Real World or The Challenge, and they're very like hip to some of the newer seasons, or in this case would be the later seasons. And I'm always like, oh no, no, no. The early seasons had like a lot of great storytelling. In the latter seasons, I would say like a DC season did pretty good. I really connected to Mike Manning's story quite a bit. Which one did I? Well, anyways, that's not what this is about. We could do another episode on stuff like that. What I'm saying is, it's interesting that New Orleans became the third choice. But I'm not mad at all. I am not mad at all. I'm going to tell you my impressions of New Orleans and then also a couple of other things. But I think that what I enjoy is that I still feel, again, that there would have been a space for San Francisco, if it was done well. And I think it could have been done well. But if you're looking for, who was it? Who was in the house? Corey, Quiet Corey. Corey was her name. Yeah. And you're trying to one up like what had happened in LA, that's not the kind of reality TV that I think these viewers particularly want. The viewers of Homecoming aren't the viewers that really get excited about like Las Vegas, though it was great to a degree. It was like rushing in the hot tub day one. Like, I mean, that's young people, they're hot. Like there's the story, and just keep on writing the same thing. So I think San Francisco could have been done. But anyways, I don't have any information. Well, you're welcome to theorize your opinion as to why San Francisco didn't get a pick. I still feel like San Francisco I enjoyed, New Orleans I enjoyed. Unfortunately, I only got to spot watch some of those other great seasons. I feel so bad that I can't acquire on Paramount Plus, those really great Boston and Seattle and Miami seasons. other than when I spot watched it as a teen. Now, see, I didn't watch a lot of it as a teen, other than the early ones, and then I'll tell you when I picked back up. Because when you watch The Real World back in that time, especially being a straight male, it was like you didn't watch The Real World because The Real World represented too much, you know, which, is a shame looking back that that's kind of how things go. So I remember only being able to sort of spot watch certain seasons. So I would hope that Paramount adds them all so I could complete like the stories that I know from some of those seasons. Now, it seemed like, and I was going to say a second ago about like where I really like reinserted to really loving the show outside of like New York Real World is season one still to me so fantastic. I mean, I rewatched it recently, front to back. I mean, you're crazy if you don't think it's that great. But then again, not everyone you talk to is that excited about New York life, and I always am. Um, anyways, so though Hawaii was the season that kind of pushed it back into everyone's face, uh, eh, Ruthie, um, I knew a friend who, so Ruthie moves in a way. Um, that was years ago now. Um, anyways, Hawaii wasn't like the most exciting, but it was one that definitely put it back on the map. So then, like, everyone started watching The Real World at that point. Before then, it was only certain people that watched The Real World, and which brings you to some of my favorite seasons. When you ask what are some of my favorite seasons, I sometimes wonder if they were so amazing or were they the seasons that would I'm an oldest child. I have two siblings, they're both younger, so naturally I always like gravitated towards who was like let's say when I was a freshman in high school, I was always like, oh, what are the seniors doing, what kind of music are they listening to, like what parties are they going to. So I think though I'm close in age to when the New Orleans cast aired in 1990, 2000, I believe it was. um they're still older, so it was like aspirational in that way, how we talk about housewives and it's like aspirational living. It was aspirational and like, oh gosh, when I'm still like, I think I was like probably in high school when this series aired, or around that time, maybe just a year out. And I definitely didn't go to college. So it was like you got to see all of this life, and also, the city, New Orleans in general, is another big draw. But then it's this cast. Before I like stick into New Orleans, and we're gonna watch the trailer here together. I hope I could figure that out here on this little system. But I will say another season that really did it for me, and I keep bringing this up because I still, if it were me, and they're wondering if Paramount was like, hello, Ronnie, what season do we do next? I would say, um, obviously, I mentioned some of those other ones, but of this little group, I did like Back to New York, with Coral, with Mike, with Lori, with Kevin, I think his name was, with Nicole, and with the blonde. What was her name? I think she worked in production after that too. What was her name? Beth. This is too many Beths. I like that. But the season that really just like soaked me in was Chicago. I was such a fan of Chicago. Chicago is also another great reason to bring that one back. I know I'm like delaying. You're like, oh my gosh, like we wanted to talk about New Orleans. Would you shut up? No. Chicago was one of my favorites, and I think I would also like to see them get a homecoming, because what's interesting about them is they are the one season that in real time went through, the tragic 9/11 um scenario, and that'll in itself, to hear the perspective, you're on this show that's literally just about partying for the most part, and kind of coming of age, and then yet this happened and you're on camera, and what does that feel like, and the pressure. But then beyond that, my favorite cast member, probably of every cast member that's ever, I put her up so high that I'm wondering maybe she wasn't that good, but Kara Khan, on the Chicago season was such, I don't, and I do know why, but I say I don't know why, but I feel like I know why. Kara was like, me being young and, again, I was probably around 18, 19, 17, 18, 19 when these shows were airing, and the casts were all like, 22 or whatever. And even though it's close in age, they were like grown up. And what Kara did, I just always liked that scene when they were talking about Chris, and she, in the nicest way, like, was so like it's so funny how far we've gone as far as like being open with certain conversations. But Kara was like, I guess what I would say is, as a closeted me, Kara was who I was like, that's like a friend. Like I'd be friends with her. You know what I mean? Because of her. Oh yeah, this and diesel jeans. How did I forget? And she wasn't being like mean or generalizing. It in her world it didn't matter. Like she, you knew she was a girl that like been around people. And she, again, tons of confidence. I love a cast member with confidence. She had the epic line, "Did I really just say seal the deal?" And then there's talks of who the band was and all that stuff. And then on the other aspect of that, you have Anissa, who arguably is one of the longest running challenge cast members, and that's something in itself, still working with MTV on the podcast. Kyle has had different um areas of his career. Is he the nicest man? Who knows? But what he has been able to do, and now I think he did a little bit in the world of acting and soap opera, but then went here and went there in sports, and then it kind of all calculated into him being really successful in sports reporting. So you have Kyle that we still see on a regular. We have Anissa, who you still see on the regular. Kara, who's happily married and got her little fashion situation. She's like the type that never needs to do reality TV, but if I was the Bravo cameras, I would be following her. And then outside of that, Carrie, she was not. She didn't really bring a lot, but it doesn't mean she wouldn't bring something to a real world Chicago homecoming. And I think the questionable one, because of some stuff that may have happened on the Challenge House, would have been Tanya. But Tanya was, of course, interesting. Chris, I'd like to see, just because it was still. I mean, it's so funny. The new generation doesn't really know how, like, just to see somebody living openly, how that's so great. And that goes back from Norm to Chris to Mike Manning to whatever the different story to Caitlin on the third New York, which was in Red Hook, which I think it was supposed to be in downtown Brooklyn, which would have been a better fit. Red Hook to me was just a little, like, it was nice. I've walked by the space, but it was too far out. And I always feel like houses that are too far out make it a little challenging to like really live it up. Anyways, that's just like my whole concept of like homecoming in general, and who I would like to see have another series. I think San Diego would be good, but we're done with that. I'm going to attempt to play the trailer, and then we'll react to that. I hope the audio is intact. If you do hear it a little brash, just kind of go with it. Anyways, let's check this out. And actually, we can add this right now and play the real world homecoming trailer, New Orleans, with the great Mellisa. And then I'll watch it, and then we'll talk all about how I love that season too.
This is it. You.
It doesn't work.
I'm sorry. Calm down. Time the out.
We're back.
Oh my God, am I really doing this?
Okay, wait, you change your name?
Tokyo. Julie has a controversial history with many of us.
I'm not trying to mess with that lady.
Come on, be my baby tonight.
We were really, really good friends, and then you did a really bad thing to me.
Someone I thought was my friend just stabbed me in the back. We couldn't live a public life. To see his face not blurred still makes me anxious.
Take a breath.
We want to get to know David.
If you're stagnant and expect me to stop, that's not gonna happen.
I could have been so much better then. This time, the door is open.
Oh, good God.
This is no longer fun. Belligerence has arrived.
Come on, be my baby tonight.
What I signed up for is not what you signed up for. That door is open and I can leave.
I'm either with you 100% or I'm not with you at all.
Why did I come back here?
My sexuality made you feel uncomfortable.
I'm a very broken man right now.
You didn't apologize.
Hard for me.
Did you miss us?
The Real World Homecoming, New Orleans. Streaming April 20th exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Let's watch it together. So it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. Oh, there's another sound. Hold on one second. Let me turn this off in the background. Okay. Okay, we're good. It looks really, really good. And while we loved Homecoming Venice, in these big moments, of course, Tammy Roman, they should be paying her double, but that's neither here nor there. I feel like there's a little bit of story here. We don't know based on the trailer all of the things, but we know. Here's what we know naturally. Oh, and then remembering back to when Mellisa says, "Jamie, I want you to fill my buttocks," or something like that. Mellisa is always going to be fantastic at reality TV. I loved seeing her journey in those few years that she lived in LA. I believe she lived in LA. I believe she lived with Coral, correctly. I want to know more about that. And like pursuing, what was it? Girls Behaving Badly was the series that she was doing with Chelsea Handler. And it's just so crazy. Like Chelsea Handler's career went this way and people's lives go different places. And, Mellisa, much like I say with Kara Khan, it's like these certain people who do reality TV, you're almost like, they're too cool. They don't even need it. But when you know this for sure, watching Mellisa when she was young and the way she was so open about everything and just like she came to film a TV show and she didn't hold nothing back. And it's those kinds of people who end up, looking at 15 or whatever it is now, 22 years later. Wow. That I don't want to say anyone has it all as far as like you have it all if you are married and have kids or whatever, but really she does. She has kids. She's married to a musician. I believe he does like other stuff as well in the marketing space as well, merchandise or whatnot. And they live in Long Island, and it's like, it's not a surprise. People who live bashfully sometimes don't get to achieve things. I have to like tell myself that too. Sometimes I'm like, why don't I just like step up? Like, why don't I just like be more like, not, just stop thinking and just, living. Because if you live, you get the chance to like take these really great chances. And again, not saying if you're married, that means you're, you've made this versus somebody who wants to be single. I have tons of people that I look up to that are single at a certain age, sometimes never had children. And I don't think that those things mean all the, end all be all. But with Mellisa, I'm so interested to see how she comes back. I feel like she'll be a bit more refined, but I mean, even already, like, I'm not messing with that lady. A little bit of it, what we saw was from, early on, we saw that apparently Julie behind the scenes, really wasn't comfortable with a lot of the people. Comfortable meaning she being the problem. There's the big argument they had at the challenge house. I don't know, are we still in the same scenario? Like, is it still from whatever Julie did back then? Or is there new stuff? Julie in herself, she actually has a very interesting thing too, because she essentially missed her Boston flight as she was doing like those school tours or whatnot. And I'll just say the flight that I think she was arguing with a boyfriend or whatnot at the time, on that September, day, that if she would have made the flight, she would have been on a flight, if you know what I mean. And luckily for her, she changed and went on another flight, or just, and of course that's a day no one forgets, as I referenced in Chicago. So Julie was in Boston. Yeah, so that may be something that, storyline wise, that not storyline, because that sounds weird to say, storyline wise, or part, that comes out in this. I know Danny has been open as far as, it seems like in the trailer we're going to see a lot of the old stuff, him looking back at the him and Paul situation, which was such a big deal at that time. But also Danny, I think, is always almost, I mean, not because he's trying, he's just naturally who he is, but always at the forefront of certain things, because now, and we don't know if this will happen in the show. I'm talking around certain things, just so if they don't show up, it's fine, or if they do, it's more of still a surprise, not a surprise, but I believe Danny talks, I'll say the words, breaking through the stigma of certain things that a gay man, or really anyone in general, actually, will go through. And I think that will be, I think him coming on the show, I don't imagine that not being addressed, because it's such a great message, and it is very important to test yourself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and Danny was always great too. I always remember when Danny did a couple of the teen like CW shows or whatever they were, the like I don't know if it was One Tree Hill, I don't know which Dawson's Creek, I don't know what it was, but he was like kind of doing a couple of those appearances right after. I mean, it's just so funny. Like, I'm like, the way these careers go, why couldn't he have just kept on going in that world? Obviously some of them may have just been sort of a novelty casting, but to me, Danny could have, and I think in the show he was playing a straight guy, I believe. I mean, he could have done that. So it would have been nice to see. It could have been very progressive. Obviously, you do want to. Well, he's not an actor, so that's not really the thing. But I'm saying he could have been a gay man playing straight roles, and it could have worked wonderfully. But I don't know. And I guess what I'm saying is I'm interested to know, kind of like with Mellisa, where some of their, and I think this for all the cast members, where their careers are going, where they're trying to parlay this opportunity. And when I say parlay, it's not saying they're going into the house saying, I want to be Bethany Frankel. And this was, of course, before Bethany Frankel, but I want to like have this skincare line, or this, tanning line, or this, candle line, or, skinny girl. It's more saying, I'm interested to know what those few years looked like when those phone calls were so big, and then they sort of change and you reacclimate into life. Some of the people have done so much with it. Mike the Miz from Real World, the Back to New York. We've not stopped seeing him. Sometimes I wish we could, and I wish we could see Coral instead. So, anyways, what I'm saying, Danny has a lot to speak upon. I think that will be great to hear. I think it's going to be interesting. I don't know if we're going to have an issue with like Matt, and he really wasn't present. And I felt like when he was casted all those years ago, it was really just to give Julie something to go off of. Like, it's almost like they built in we really love this BYU. If she leaves to do this TV show, all that's going to be different. It's almost like some of the stuff you hear on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, but all those years ago. But I think another thing that's interesting with Julie is sometimes some of these cast members maybe didn't realize how favorable a lot of situations were for them. And the world has changed, and the world is in some ways equaled out, not really, but in some ways it has. And it seemed like Julie was real frustrated. Like, why did I come back here? And I do sometimes wonder, sometimes the cast members are mortified, and they're also not even like aware. They're not even like have enough self-awareness to know that like you really didn't do much, but the production took care of you. And the production typically took care of the same types of people. And now things are balancing out. And some of these, I mean, we saw it a lot with, and I don't think Julie was bad on any level in New York. But we saw Kevin and like how his stuff was dismissed back then. And then now, it makes more sense, even though he was very, assured with his words and trying to explain what he was feeling and going through. And it just really, no one wanted to receive it at that time, and I'm not saying stuff like that will play on this series. We saw a lot of stuff like that sort of play in the Homecoming Venice, but I feel like we might see a little bit of Matt and Julie, and just how, they might get a little more tired, and it may be more of an inconvenience this time. And I don't know. With Matt, we don't know. With Matt, I have no idea. I've not done any of the digital whatever. I mean, for all I know, the trailer that we saw that alluded to Danny saying, "Oh, I made my lifestyle made you sick or grossed out or whatever." That might be, maybe. I mean, I'm just gonna throw some stuff out there. I would never throw. Well, I would say maybe Matt was going through some stuff, and maybe he's maybe he's also a family. And I would never really make that joke, but there's also, we're in this episode we are really just trying to like calculate what we're going to see. Jamie, I believe, was on the show. I've seen photos or whatnot, but he's barely in the trailer, or am I wrong about that? And then let's get to Kelly. We also never really knew a ton about Kelly, but she's not dating, married, but the Scott Wolf, I think was his name, from the Party of Five or whatever. And she's still fun, and there are a couple of cast members on these series that you do say, gosh, I wish they were in the house a little bit more. And some of them are just away doing their own thing, and she's kind of that. We didn't see her a lot, but I think she'll be a nice little glue for everybody. But of course, our confessional queen is going to be Mellisa. That's I mean, again, I keep saying this. I'm like, Bravo or E or Netflix, all these shows. Not every reality show has to be a housewife show, but there could be other shows. And yeah, send a camera crew and keep Mellisa on our television, because I'm pretty sure that people are going to be very interested. I mean, for one, it's almost as if like she was speaking and people maybe weren't even listening to her, because that's like, people weren't listening to stuff back in those days. I know, thinking of like her coming onto the show, and she's a biracial woman, and the people around her, the New Orleans cast, probably shortchanged her a little bit, and I feel like I wonder, were there moments where she didn't feel seen by those cast members? But she's vocal, she'll speak her mind, so we'll of course find out. And I like the run. Oh, I was gonna say that I like the episode run. I don't need it to be 20 episodes, but I like it's on a weekly basis. I'm actually not a fan of like Netflix reality shows, basically because I don't like the shows. I mean, Selling Sunset has never done anything for me. I like Million Dollar Listing a lot better, specifically the New York one, and Josh Flagg is actually very interesting, and Josh Altman from the LA one. I still think they should go back and do a San Francisco one. But anyways, the Netflix shows, they're whatever. Why did I bring that up? Netflix shows. Why did I bring that up? Well, it doesn't even matter. So yeah, I'm fully, I was saying I don't like the Netflix shows because I don't like the shows, but I also don't like when the shows are launched. Here's the 10 episodes, go binge it when you want. I don't like that. Don't like that. Who do you think I am? I work for you now. Are you now I gotta watch these shows right now. And of course you don't have to, but it's just so much out there. I like By the Week. And I think By the Week actually makes it funner because, when Tammy had that big viral moment with the bonnet and the cigar, and, just Tammy's just so wonderful. And that was a really tough scene to watch. At least the payoff, with Tammy is that, it's like all of these years, us people who watched her on The Real World were like, how much work she put in that second season. Other cast members were skating by, and it was like really interesting to know that you were going to watch it. And I think it was like the 6th episode or whatever, and that like suddenly she really connected in a way on a very big level. So I think for that, and again, I don't like shows thinking that they have to do a TV show to try to get a memeable or viral moment. I'm not really into that. I always think if you do a good show, something will come. And that's exactly what Tammy basically did, because she's, always hitting you with the Bonnet Chronicles. And, I've watched many of Basketball Wives seasons, and, she lets it dangle like that. And, that combined with the really harsh moment that was going on, of course she's going to make that moment. So I want these shows to really focus on the storylines of the show and the characters, and that's why I'm kind of like going through them all. The least I probably know about is Kelly, and David changing his name to Tokyo. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if he had some hard times after the series. I hope for his sake that he can be in on the joke that everybody, literally everybody, there's nobody who doesn't like that song. And I hope that it's not a dark spot in his heart, as far as like, he really wanted to be looked at as a musician, and he felt laughed at. Maybe I just don't want that. I would hope that throughout the course of the time they're all together, that he can realize that everybody loves that song. It makes them, it evokes an emotion. It makes them feel good. It makes you feel good. Like I could sing it right now. So I wonder, and that's just the weirdest thing. And this is what people who are coming up now don't realize. I always equate it to me with radio. Back when we did radio, you had to be put through your paces, and you really didn't have a lot of control. The new kids could do whatever they want, create a viral moment, and they're winning tomorrow, making hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's crazy. And so on the exact equivalent of that, there's people who are like, I don't need to go through the gatekeepers or whatever with music, the music industry, and they wouldn't see that doing something and it failing like that song did, how that would be a hindrance for him to get back in the door. Nowadays, you do something like that, it's funny, but you're kind of being laughed at. You could still like work with that. Not back then. No, 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 no. That and it was weird too, because you would be on a reality show and you would be edited only. So you didn't necessarily even have a way to like say, oh wait, there's more to the story. Could you imagine? Those old, I mean, this was like the 10th season, I believe. Those seasons, you didn't really get to justify like, oh well, I only said that because somebody told me this, and you only caught my reaction. I mean, so that's a good and a bad of the new stuff. The newer shows is that the people do get to go to Twitter and sort of say what they say. The bad is sometimes they lie now. But yeah, I mean, I've seen the deceptive editing. The few episodes that we had done on Fuse TV before we went to the live portion, I remember making a comment about somebody who made a comment about the girl that we all liked, and I like critiqued him, but they cut that part out and made it like, oh well, we're all tight, we don't like him. And then I was mad at him for no reason, and I was like, well, there was a reason. But that when I did Fuse TV, that was 2005. So there was no way to really talk to your audience, like message boards were still like a very new thing. So I'm just interested in it all. I hope they all came to talk. The reason I say, and I really wasn't trying to make this that long, and I'm glad you stuck around. The reason I think that the second season of Homecoming wasn't as good as the first is because I feel like not everyone showed up to play. Like, I mean, to a degree, yes. Do you want to step in mess? No, I get that. I totally get that. But I think a rule of thumb is if you're going to do a show, you've got to give something. Okay. And that could be the humor, that could be the vulnerable moment, that could maybe be if they edit it in, your product. But thinking about some of those characters, it's like Tammy and everyone else. I like Beth A. I thought she was really good. Beth, for all of her attempts at the challenge, you definitely got to enjoy her. It seems like she's got a nice family, a nice husband, everything like that. David, expressed himself, and I think there was some good words from that. David on the season 2. It was fine. So what I'm saying is I think this feels like a more balanced season. You know what I mean? Much like season 1. Was Eric probably the most known and notable and most important? Yeah, but he was not able to be with the rest of them. So that kind of balanced things out. And I think this is a good season because they're all coming from different walks of life, and it's kind of almost feels organic to, we should have actually more shows like this. We should have more shows that are, why does every show have to be the 22-year-old, going into the house? Obviously you can't do this because, they have kids and stuff like that. But I'd like to see the storytelling of people in this particular age bracket. And in fact, I'll do a show. How about that? So hashtag randomly with Ronnie Jr. Come along the journey and pay me well. No, it'll be good. And yeah, Mellisa will be another person that we all loved back in the day and we're going to be like tweeting about. I love that she has a podcast called Imperfect Strangers, where she actually was being interviewed by someone. I believe the girl's name's Andrea, and they like during March of 2020, when things changed, they sort of started a show called Imperfect Strangers. So let's do a show, but we don't really know each other outside of the one interview. And so, they kind of got it going on, and more people will be able to enjoy Mellisa and all the fun stuff that she's brought to the table. And yeah, it would be good to see, how much she's changed from being a younger girl to, a woman and her responsibilities with kids and all that kind of stuff. And just absolutely as gorgeous as always, absolutely a knockout, complete, such a beautiful woman. So just even aesthetically, so it's what do they say, it gets greater later. Anyways, that wraps it up. The other episodes that I've done will all be under randomlyRJ.com. I think I'm losing my voice now. And I've talked about the real world and some of the other stuff that are similar to this episode too. This voice is going, so I guess I'm going to say goodbye, and maybe on my Patreon account, maybe do episode by episode. I don't know. But this was important to do. I wanted to do this episode because I really like the New Orleans season, and I really hope Chicago, maybe San Diego, definitely like the Boston, but I haven't seen all the Boston. I've only seen a lot of it, but not all of it. Or Seattle will be the next choices. I don't want this is a me. I don't want Vegas to be either of the Vegases, all three of the Vegases. I don't think we need to see what Trichelle's doing at this point. I don't. Give me Chicago. No one cares what I think. So that's the end. Gotta go.